Shalom Aleichem Mishpochim. How are you guys doing today or tonight? We are in the fourth reading. Let's see, the third or fourth reading? The third reading of the Torah portion of Vayera in the book of Breshis. So let us begin with the reading. Let's begin with the reading. I'm using my Hebrew English Chetas, Daily Studies in Chetas, the Schatzenstein edition. This is fairly new to the market. And we are in the third reading, chapter 19, verse 1. Rashi is down here. And we'll begin. The two angels arrived in Sodom only at nightfall. Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. Lot saw them and rose to greet them and prostrated himself on the ground. What does Rashi say for verse 1? Titled The Angels. But elsewhere the Torah calls them men. The answer is that when the divine presence was with them, the Torah calls them men. Another explanation, in connection with Abraham, who had a great power of spirituality, and to whom angels were as familiar as men, it calls them men, whereas in connection with Lot, it calls them angels. At nightfall, did it really take the angels so long to travel from Cheshvan to Sodom? However, they were angels of mercy and tarried so that perhaps Abraham could successfully plead in defense of the people of Sodom. Lot was sitting at the gate of Sodom. This word is written without a vav, indicating the past tense, from which we derive that on that day they had appointed him as their chief judge. Lot saw them. He had been trained from Abraham's home to look out for guests. Torah says, verse 2, he said, "Now, my lords, please turn aside and take a circuitous route to your servant's house, so no one will notice you entering it. Spend the night, bathe your feet, and then wake up early and continue on your way." They replied, "No, we will spend the night in the city square instead." Rashi says for verse 2, means, "Hear now, you are my masters, since you have passed my way." Another explanation of this word, right now you must be careful regarding these wicked people, that they do not notice you, and this is the correct advice. The people of Sodom don't notice the angels. Please turn aside, deviate from the regular path to my house by coming a roundabout way, so that they do not notice that you are entering it. It therefore says, turn aside. Spend the night, bathe your feet. It is usual for people to stay the night and then to wash. Is it usual for people to stay the night and then to wash? Moreover, Abraham had told them, first wash your feet. However, this is what Lot said. What if, when the people of Sodom come and see that they have already washed their feet, they will accuse me, saying, 2 or 3 days have already elapsed since they came to your house, and you did not inform us. He therefore said, it is better that they stay here with the dust of their feet, so that they seem as if they had just arrived. He therefore said, first spend the night and then wash. They replied, no. But to Abraham they said, yes, do as you have said. From here we learn that one may refuse a less important person, but one may not refuse a great person. In this context, this means but. This word means but. They said, we will not turn aside to your home, but we will spend the night in the city square. The Torah says, verse 3, he pleaded with them strongly, so they turned his way and entered his house. He made a feast for them, and because it was Passover, he baked matzos for them, and they ate. All right, that was verse 3, Rashi. What does it say? They turned aside to him. They took a roundabout path towards his house. He baked matzos because it was Passover. Verse 4, Torah. They had not yet gone to bed when the townspeople, the wicked men of Sodom, surrounded the house, young and old, all the people from every quarter. Rashi says for verse 4, they had not yet gone to bed when the townspeople, the men of Sodom. In Breshis Rabbah, it is explained as follows. They had not yet gone to bed, and the townspeople were being discussed by the angels. For they were asking Lot about their character and deeds, to which he replied, most of them are wicked. While they were still speaking about them, the men of Sodom surrounded. But the straightforward meaning of the verse is, the men of the town, wicked men, had surrounded the house because they were wicked. They were called men of Sodom, just as the verse says, the men of Sodom were wicked sinners, wicked and sinners. All the people from the end, literally from the end, from one end of the city to the other, for not one of them protested, since there was not even one righteous person among them. Torah says for verse 5, they called out to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, so that the men among us may know them carnally. Rashi says for verse 5, so that we may know them carnally, for homosexual purposes. Knowing here indicates carnal relations, as in, who have never known a man carnally. All right. Skipping to verse 8, so we'll read. Torah verse 6, Lot went out to them, to the entrance, and closed the door behind him. Verse 7, he said, I beg you, my brothers, do not commit such a wrong. Here I have 2 daughters who have never known a man carnally. I will bring them out to you, and do with them as you please, but do nothing to these men, for they have come under the shelter of my roof. And I am therefore responsible for their safety. Verse 8, Rashi, is the same as these. For this word means, I ask you to do this favor out of respect for me, because they have come under the shelter of my roof. This is translated by Unclose as, in the shadow of my beam. The Aramaic translation of beam is, I cannot read that. Torah says for verse 9, but they said to Lot, get out of the way. Then they said to each other, this one came here as a sojourner, and he already dares to reprove us? They turned to him and said, now we will deal with you worse than with them. They pressed hard against the man, against Lot, and moved forward to break down the door. Rashi says for verse 9, they said, get out of the way, literally, draw near to further away. In other words, move near to the sides and go far from us. Similarly, every word in Scripture is always an expression of distancing, as in, throw away, behold, the arrows are beyond you. Thus means withdraw to over there, in Old French, traiter de nos, draw away from us. It is an expression of contempt, as if to say, we do not care about what you say. Similar to this is, stay near your location, do not approach me. And similarly, move over for me, so that I may sit, which means move aside for my sake, so that I may sit next to you. Thus here they were, in effect, telling him, you are intervening for the guests. How dare you? In reply to what he said to them about his daughters, they said to him, get out of the way, a relatively gentle expression. But with regard to his intervening for the guests, they said, this one has come to sojourn, meaning, you are a single stranger among us who has come to sojourn here, yet he dares to reprove us? You have become one who rebukes us. The door, this is what revolves to close and open the entrance. Rashi says for verse 11, Torah says verse 10. So the men inside stretched out their hands and pulled Lot towards themselves into the house and closed the door. Verse 11, they miraculously struck the people who were at the entrance to the house with blindness, young men and old. So the people tried in vain to find the entrance. Rashi says, verse 11, the entrance. This is the space through which people enter and exit. An attack of blindness. From young to old, the young ones had begun sinning first, as it says, literally, from young to old. The punishment therefore began with them. Verse 12, Torah. The men inside said to Lot, whom else do you have here besides your wife and 2 daughters, a son-in-law, or your grandsons and granddaughters, or anyone you may have in the city? Get them out of here. Verse 12, Rashi. Whom else do you have here? The straightforward meaning of the verse is, whom else do you have in this city besides your wife and your daughters who are at home? A son-in-law, your sons and daughters? If you have a son-in-law or sons and daughters, take them out of this place, your sons. This refers to the sons of your married daughters. The Agadic explanation of this word is still, inasmuch as they are committing such a disgrace. Can you find justification any more for defending them? For throughout the night he was pleading in their favor. According to this explanation, the verse should be interpreted, do you have a mouth to justify them? Verse 13, Torah. Because we are about to destroy this place. Hold on. We'll start over here. The men inside said to Lot, whom else whom else do you have here besides your wife and 2 daughters, a son-in-law, or your granddaughters and granddaughter, or your grandsons and granddaughters, or anyone you may have in the city? Get them out of here, because we are about to destroy this place. For the people's outcry before God has grown great, and God has sent us to destroy it. Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-law and his daughters' fiancés, and said, get up and leave this place, for God is about to destroy the city. But in the eyes of his sons-in-law and daughters' fiancé, he appeared to be joking. Rashi, verse 15, his sons-in-law. He had 2 married daughters in the city, and his daughters' fiancés, to whom the daughters at home were betrothed. Torah says, verse 15, as dawn was breaking, the angels urged Lot on, saying, arise, take your wife and 2 daughters who are here, lest you be obliterated along with everyone else on account of the city's sinfulness. Rashi says, verse 15, its meaning is as Onkelos translates it. They pressed, they hurried him, who are here, who are already at hand in the house to be saved. There is an Agadic explanation, but this is the most straightforward way that fits the verse. This means you will be annihilated, is translated by Onkelos as until the entire generation was annihilated. Torah says, verse 16, yet he lingered. So out of God's compassion for him, the men grasped him and his wife, and 2 daughters by the hand. They led them out and left them on the outskirts of the city. All right, verse 16, Rashi, he lingered in order to save his belongings, and that was Lot who lingered. The men grasped Lot and his family. One of them was the messenger sent to save him, while the other was sent to overturn Sodom. Thus it says in the next verse, he said, run, and it does not say, they said. Torah, verse 17, when they had led them out, the angel said, run for your life, do not look back nor stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the hills, lest you be obliterated along with everyone else. Rashi says, verse 17, run for your life. It is enough for you that you can save your lives. Do not be concerned with your belongings. Do not look back. You sinned together with them, and only through the merit of Abraham are you being saved. It is not proper for you to witness their punishment while you yourself are being saved. Anywhere in the plain, the Kikar plain of the Jordan. Flee to the hills. Flee to Abraham, who is living in the mountain area. As it says, from here he moved on to the mountains. Even now he was still living there, as it says, until the place where he originally had his tent. And even though it is written later, Abram set up tents, and came and settled in Chevron, implying that he was living in Chevron, and not in the mountain area. He had many tents extending from the mountain as far as Chevron. This is an expression of slipping away, and similarly, every expression of this word in Scripture has this meaning. In Old French, asmuser. Similarly, we find she delivered a boy. For the fetus slips out of the womb like a bird that escaped. They could not deliver their burden, to discharge the burden of excrement in their bowels. Torah says, verse 18, Lot said to them, Please, God, no. Your servant has found favor in your eyes. And in the abounding kindness you have shown me, you have saved my life. But I cannot escape to the mountain where Abraham lives, lest an evil stigma cling to me and I be judged worthy to die. Verse 18, Rashi, Please God, no. A rabbi said that this name is holy, referring to God. For it says about him who is being addressed, You have saved my life, referring to the one who has the power to put to death, or to keep alive. This too is the Aramaic translation. Please, now, God. Please, no. Do not tell me to escape to the mountain. Here is an expression of request. Torah, verse 19. Or, I read verse 9. Okay. Verse 19. Rashi says, Lest an evil stigma not cling to me. Lot said, When I was near the people of Sodom, the Holy One, blessed be He, would see my deeds along with the deeds of the townspeople, and I seemed righteous and worthy to be saved. But when I come into the presence of the truly righteous Abraham, I will be regarded as wicked. Similarly, the woman of Zarephath said to Elijah, You have come to me to draw attention to my sin. Before you came to me, the Holy One, blessed be He, would see my deeds with those of my people, and I was a righteous woman among them. But once you have come to me, I am considered wicked relative to your deeds. Verse 20, Torah. Please, there is this town called Bela, which was founded more recently than the other 4 cities. It is therefore a fitting place to flee to, for it is less entrenched in sin than the other 4 cities, and does not yet deserve to be destroyed. Please let me escape there. In any case, it is similar, mitzar, than the other cities. So you shouldn't mind sparing it, so I can survive in it. Verse 20, Rashi. This town is near, means its settlement is near in time. It was only recently settled, and therefore its measure of sin has not yet been filled. And relative to what was its recentness, relative to the generation of the dispersion, when mankind was dispersed and they began to settle, each in his own place. This was in the year of Peleg's death. And from then until now was 52 years, for Peleg died in Abraham's 48th year. How is this reckoned? Peleg lived 209 years after he fathered Reu. Deduct from this number 32 years, the age of Reu when Serug was born, and 30 years from the birth of Serug until Nahor was born, making 62 years, and from the birth of Nahor until Terach was born, 29 years, making 91 years, and from then until Abraham was born, 70 years, altogether being 161 years. Add to them 48 years of Abraham's life, and there are 209 years. That year was the year of the dispersion. And when Sodom was destroyed, Abraham was 99 years old. Thus, from the generation of the dispersion, in the 48th year of Abraham's life, until now was 52 years. The settling of Zoar took place 1 year later than that of Sodom and its sister cities, which is alluded to by what it says here. Please, let me escape. The word has the numerical value of 51. Is it not small? Are not its sins few, and therefore you may spare it, so I can survive in it? This is all according to the Midrashic explanation. However, the straightforward meaning of the verse is it not only a small town with few inhabitants? You need not be particular about sparing it, so I can survive in it. And that is Torah portion of Vayera, third reading, and Rashi. My zipper. All right. As always, I will read some daily wisdom on what we just read from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Chabad Lubavitcher Rebbe. The third reading. Yeah, the third reading right here. Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 19, 1 through 20. Despite Abraham's pleas, the wickedness of Sodom and its neighbors was so great that it could not be overlooked. The angels arrived at Lot's house in order to rescue him from the impending destruction. Hearing that Lot had invited guests into his home, the people of Sodom stormed the house. The title of this daily wisdom, Torah portion wisdom, is called Defending Humanity. The men of the city of Sodom surrounded Lot's house, young and old, all the people from every quarter. We will begin. Despite the wickedness of the inhabitants of Sodom, Abraham tried to defend them before God. In fact, Abraham was the first person in history to speak up in defense of others. God was very pleased when Abraham spoke up in defense of humanity, for in doing so, he was imitating God's own ways. As King David expressed it, God is good to all, and his mercy extends to all his creatures. For this reason, the Midrash teaches us that the world is sustained and was even created in the merit of Abraham. Similarly, by defending other people's behavior, finding mitigating factors and reasons for their misdeeds as Abraham did, we become partners in sustaining the world. Moreover, we thereby sustain our own personal worlds, the circles of family, friends, students, and co-workers among whom we live, arousing God's mercy on them and on us. And that is the daily wisdom of the Lubavitcher Rebbe.